Well, hello and welcome to week 2 of our course. This week is pretty interesting in the reading that you're going to do because you're covering some of the basics of what it means really to be a counselor. When I'm at dinner parties or out with people that I don't know, the first thing that people say when I say that I'm a therapist or a counselor is, "Oh, wow, that must be really hard." Or they say, "Oh no, you must be analyzing me. You're probably thinking about everything that I say." And it's really funny that that's the common conception of what we do as counselors. I think as you're reading through this chapter, you're really going to be intrigued as you get to think about what is it really like to have the life of a counselor? How is that going to affect my personal life? How do I have my personal life affecting my counseling? And, really in the end, what I hope that you'll keep in mind is that as a counselor, you're probably not a person that's going to be analyzing everyone at a dinner party. I know that I certainly am not. The other thing I always keep in mind is that one of the first things that you'll learn in counseling, and that's why it's the first in your textbook here, is that it's important for you in these types of careers to have good boundaries and to not be, carrying things with you. When someone says to me, "Man, that must be such a hard job," I try to say, it has its ups and downs, but I try to leave work at work. Just like every other job, it is important as a counselor to know that there are ways to be able to come home and be a mom, a dad, a sister, a parent, or excuse me, a grandparent, or have other roles in your life. Um, I hope that you will know that the best thing that you can bring to your therapy and to your clients is just to be your own real self. You're going to learn about techniques and specific approaches that have been created by these other people, and that's helpful. I definitely use tools from the masters who've created counseling theories. But I'd say that only makes up about 10% of what I do as a counselor. Besides that, about 90% of what you really have to offer people is just being your own true self, being a person that's having their own mental health care needs met, maybe seeing your own counselor, making sure that you have good boundaries, that you're not trying to fix everyone that you see, but that you're just being there, able to help them help themselves, and being someone that's able to know, what's kind of yours, what you can do to try to help them, and also giving the client what's theirs, which is really, you're going to read about remembering to honor their values, their goals, and ultimately their work. They're going to be the ones that really make change happen in the end for themselves. There was a study in 2001 that came out of BYU University that looked at hundreds of different client-therapist relationships and what the positive outcomes were. And they found this, that therapy techniques and approaches tended to only account for about 15% of the successful outcomes. A whopping 49 or so percent was actually accounted for by random things, expectation of the client, or things outside of the client or the counselor's control even, like let's say Match.com came through and Johnny, who's been really depressed because they're single, got a girlfriend and now he's not depressed anymore. And 30% was of the successful relationships was due to just a positive working relationship and the client feeling unconditional positive regard and basically liking their counselor. So keep that in mind as you're learning these techniques, that in the end, the relationship you can offer, just being a person that's there for your clients, will often stand out more than these techniques that you're about to learn. One other side note on that, when I was finishing one of my internship rotations, I was closing with this guy who was just this awesome kind of Harley riding, Fu Manchu, middle-aged guy who was really blunt with me about things throughout our counseling relationship. He was a fun client to work with, and as we were closing, I was getting his feedback and just kind of asking how the process had been for him, and he said to me something I'll never forget. He said, "You know, Flora, don't take this the wrong way, but, when you're not trying to be a counselor, you're actually a really good counselor." So I really took that to heart, and I think that really shows what I was just saying that the research studies have shown too. Um, he said one last thing to me, which I thought was really profound. He said, I think you're more of a paraclete than a counselor." I didn't know what that word meant, so I asked him to explain it to me, and he said it was like a guide, like someone who walks along a path with you, who doesn't tell you where you have to go, doesn't lecture you or boss you around, but helps you find your way.